And now for something completely different. It's the Atheist Experience with Russell Glasser and Don Baker.
Hey.
Hey. Today is Sunday, July 25th, 2010. We are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas. We take calls from the local Austin area, and thanks to our live internet stream from all over the world, the Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more by visiting www.atheist-community.org. Be sure to check out the fact page. The show is live every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 o'clock p.m. on Austin Access Channel 16. If you would like to watch us live outside of Austin, simply visit the official Atheist Experience website, www.atheist-experience.com. Click on live stream at the top of the page, and you can also participate in a chat room during the show. Also at the website, you'll find audio and video from past episodes. You can click on Archive to find a list of programs, including links to the downloads and the podcast. You can catch fan-selected clips of the Atheist Experience on YouTube, and you can see the full episodes at blip.tv. In addition to this program, The Atheist also sponsors a theoretically bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Non-Profits. You can visit www.nonprofitsradio.com for more information. Ordinarily, this would air live from Dillahunty International Studios, but in the last few months, things have gotten all crazy with people just spur of the moment trying to record one-off episodes, and so we've now got 3 of those up for your listening pleasure, which you can check out if you're a podcast subscriber. A couple by me and Linnea, one featuring Dean Jones, and an excellent one with Martin Wagner and his friends Gia and Chris. Weekly meetings for the Atheist Community of Austin are hosted at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road from 11:30 to 1 every Sunday, except for the first Sunday of the month when we host our lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. The next lecture will be held on August 1st, and it will feature Sarah Weiss and Brian Spears from Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, speaking about the importance of the separation of church and state. If you can't make it to the morning meetings, you can certainly join us for dinner right after this program, beginning at around 6:30 every Sunday. Most of the people involved with the production of the Atheist Experience will head for Threadgill's Restaurant at 301 West Riverside Drive at Barton Springs Road. Come on down, have some good food, you know the drill. Finally, the ACA also hosts an Atheist Happy Hour every Thursday, beginning at around 7 p.m. at the Dog and Duck Pub, 406 West 17th Street at Guadalupe. If you'd like to get in touch, but you don't feel like calling in today or ever, you can email us anytime at tv@atheist-community.org. We get a pretty high volume of messages at that address. There are a bunch of people who monitor that email and do our level best to answer all the questions that we can get in. But if you don't get an answer, we apologize. Check out the fact page at the website also, and the wiki. That's ironchariots.org for some cool answers to typical apologetics. And sometimes, if your email is especially interesting or common, it may be featured on the blog at atheistexperience.blogspot.com without the hyphen.
But don't despair, your name won't be there, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
not like we're going to trash people using their identity. We're going to
might
trash the ideas, not the people, right?
Yeah, or we might not trash the ideas. For instance, just today I got yet another email coming in saying, I'm a young atheist and my parents don't know I'm an atheist yet, so what should I do about that?
We get a lot of those.
Yeah, and I've considered throwing up a blog post because it's always handy to just have something I can point to say, check that one out.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that blog because that's always a great source of information. Be aware, folks, that the Austin Bat Cruise is fast approaching. The ACA Town Lake Bat Cruise will be held on Saturday, September 25th, 2010, from 6 to 8 p.m. Keep an eye on atheistcommunity.org or atheist-community.org for more details about that. People are likely to be coming from all over the place. Any idea if we're full yet?
I don't think we're full. People
Okay.
can make reservations there, but I think another thing that should be mentioned is that we're going to actually have a lecture event that day and a dinner event, and then a go out to Esther's Follies event. And so
Right.
there'll be a number of events, and hopefully it will make it more appealing for out-of-towners to come down and have a day with us and enjoy our company and chat and have fun and meet other atheists from around the country, that
Absolutely.
sort of thing.
So come early and come often.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success in the past for that event.
Right. So that's the end
That's
of the
end.
announcements.
Okay, those are the magic pause bars
Right.
for people watching the video in high speed.
Hey, people. So it's been a while, Don.
Yeah.
Good to see you again,
Haven't seen you in a while.
right?
Yeah, we seem to run in different circles. I'm South Austin, you're North Austin. And
No, actually, I'm in South Austin.
You are?
now. We need to start running more in the same circles.
yeah, we ought to do that. Sounds like a good plan. And and
Oh.
God is at work because
Yeah, you
I just
probably
heard the
didn't hear. I
thunderclap.
don't know if they heard that or not, but it's thundering pretty heavily outside because the wrath of God. You know, as
Must be a good
usual.
topic today. That's all I can say.
Right. Everyone's a critic. So what's up?
Okay. Well, I guess in the past I've done a couple of series where I've had a topic that was so big I couldn't do in one show, and today I'm going to start a new one. I've talked in the past about the Bible's greatest hits, or the negative impact of the Bible and how it's been interpreted and used. I've talked about scamlets, or ways in which folks have packaged these reusable ways of scamming people, and religions are popular for doing that. Today I'm going to start a new series that I call the buzzwords of ignorance. And what I mean by this is words used because of their emotional meaning, relying on the assumed ignorance of the audience and who are unaware of its real meaning. And these are words that are most often used in propaganda. These propaganda words is really what we're talking about. These are often used in politics, like weapons of mass destruction or weapons of mass distraction, depending on what you want to do. The war on terror, the spreading of democracy, those are some national ones. War on drugs. These are all kind of goofy ideas that when you unpack them, they don't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, they sound good on the surface. So, but we're religious, so we're gonna stick to religious-based buzzwords. And today, one that particularly gripes me is the buzzword Judeo-Christian, and that seems to be used quite a bit lately. So you hear it in the terms of Judeo-Christian values, Judeo-Christian beliefs. There's also the Judeo-Christian founding of the U.S., which you often also hear, but I'm actually going to try to separate that off and do that next time, talk about the Christian nation myth, which is another one of these. They're pretty closely related, it turns out. So it's a propaganda device used with the following purposes. First off, it's a mechanism to gloss over the 1,500 years of Jewish persecution by Christians and their theological differences. So that's one purpose of this term. Another purpose is an attempt to steal credit for America's strength on behalf of God. Third purpose is a way to claim special credit and distinction from secularism and godless communism that we saw during the Cold War, supposedly from Russia, so which is another propaganda device. It's also a way to distance U.S. from Islam. So those are the four ways I think are this word is most often used.
And that last one, even though Islam is as much an offshoot from Christianity as
Absolutely.
Christianity is an offshoot from Judaism, I would think.
Well, yeah, Islam, has roots back into Christianity and Judaism. So and they worship the same God, and people don't seem to realize that, or don't seem to be. Anyway, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So these four things. Maybe I'll read a quote for what Judeo-Christian values supposedly mean. This is an editorial from the Washington Post. In our country, Judeo-Christian values is a shorthand for a complex idea, the common culture of the American majority. The values are called Judeo-Christian because they derive from the complementary ideas of free will, moral accountability of the individual rather than of the group, the spiritual imperative of imperfect man's struggle to do what's right, and the existence of a true moral law in the teachings of Jesus Christ and the Jewish prophets, and it goes on. But you can see it's already laden with propaganda. So all four of these ideas I just brought up are related to, strongly related to spinning or interpreting some events from our history. And I think that if you spin those historic events in a certain way, it all kind of adds up in the way that they're using this Judeo-Christian. But it turns out it's all spin. It's these interpretations are false. Did you have something? No?
Not yet.
Okay. So the interpretations are meant as an ego stroke for the assumed Christian listeners and to shelter them from reality. They're most often used in political pandering and for votes and donations and that
Would
sort of
you
thing.
say that calling it Judeo-Christian values instead of Christian values is a way to make the pretense that they speak for as broad a majority as possible?
Yeah, I think it's like a puffer fish, right? You're blowing yourself up to be bigger than you are.
It's sort of like the way these distinctions about who is and who isn't a true Christian. Suddenly, those distinctions go away when we're trying to talk about how big a majority is of Christians the United States really is, in order to say that atheists should just shut up.
Sure, and it glosses over the fact that a lot of different Christians have very different beliefs internally, right? There's not a whole lot of unanimity between the different Christian sects, and
yeah, I mean, even if it were just Christian values, the values that, say, Fred Phelps holds dear, who, by the way, is at Comic-Con this week.
Oh boy, okay.
Oh, have you heard about that? I've got some stuff to say about that.
I haven't.
But those are very different from those that, let's say, the Reverend Barry Lynn or
right.
some of your
the Protestants and Catholics, are a very big distinction, right? And then within those groups, there are subgroups and so on, and so this whole Judeo-Christian is meant to slam them all together and exclude Islam in the process. So let's talk about the first big event that gives rise to the idea that we're gonna gloss over the history of Christianity. So one definition of Judeo-Christian, just for entertainment, is that I caught on one of the online dictionaries, being historically related to both Judaism and Christianity. The Judeo-Christian tradition. Well, the Judeo-Christian tradition is that of Christians persecuting Jews, okay? People should be aware of this. The big event here that we're talking about is Christianity budded off from Judaism around the 1st century as a kind of bastard child religion. Christianity rose to power in the 4th century with Constantine converting to Christianity, and from then on it had a lot of power, and from then on Christianity persecuted, tortured and killed Jews from then until the Holocaust and way into the 20th century. So we're talking 1,500 years or more of systematic persecution, and you can't just gloss over this. This is the history of Christianity, and ironically, the newsreels from the concentration camps that were played to audiences worldwide did more to stop the killing than all of Christianity, the Bible, prayer, and God could do prior to that. And in effect, these little newsreels, I think, made people sort of aware of how awful this was, and woke people up to, we can't have this go on anymore. This is definitely wrong. And from then on, it became a matter of spinning this horrible history, I think, in order to try to, gloss over the killing of millions of people. And so, first off, Judaism and Christianity worship the same God. So we're talking about people who believe the same God supposedly, and if this God really exists, he would presumably stop the killing or pick one over the other. I mean, the Jews think they're special with regard a special race or whatever. But Islam too, Islam worships the same God. So all three of these religions are called Abrahamic religions because they all worship the God of Abraham, which is, pretty important foundational story.
I think it's kind of, a difficult distinction. I mean, as atheists, we both think that the Judeo-Christo-Islamo God is a fictional character anyway.
Right.
And so it's a difficult thing to actually say definitively that they're the same God. I mean, for
you
instance,
have to point out the moment when they changed, or the events.
Well,
that
I mean,
caused
it's
them to
not so
change.
much that. I mean, let me give you an example.
They're different concepts, though, of God.
They're
right?
different concepts.
Is that what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
an example is like the Wizard of Oz has the Wicked Witch of the West, and then there's that other guy whose name escapes me. He wrote something called Wicked.
Oh, more recent. Right?
It's, it got made into a musical, and it's the story of the Wizard of Oz from the point of view of the Wicked
it's a
Witch.
riff. It's a riff on the.
It's a riff on the Wicked Witch of the West, and it, is designed to make her look different and throws in a bunch of politics.
Okay.
But
well,
I've always
this sounds
felt
like the gospel according to Judas.
Sure, something
if you
like
throw
that.
in, it's a very different spin on what happened there.
Yeah, but I mean, one of the things, and I'm going to confess, I've never read the book, never seen the musical. I know a bunch of people who've recommended it to me, but the concept of it always irritated me slightly because when I hear about some of the things that happen in the book, I was an Oz nerd when I was a kid, among many other kinds of nerd.
Okay.
And some of the things that the Wicked Witch was portrayed as doing didn't square with the facts that were stated in the Oz books. And so I felt like it was not appropriate to refer to this Wicked Witch as the same character. It was, at best, a character who was based on something written by Frank Baum. I would kind of say the same thing about the God of Islam. I mean, they have the same inspirational source material, let's say. And they're called by the same names. They have some of the same superpowers, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that I could, in good conscience, refer to them as exactly the same character. And of course, this is a problem
making a literary criticism argument here.
Well, I am kind of.
But the thing is, theologically.
That's the only thing. But the thing is, theologically, there's no basis for any of that crap. That's
right.
the problem with arguing theology, is that if you start to argue on their own terms about what God is really like,
you're fighting on quicksand.
it
right?
makes no sense because there isn't any real God. And the reason that there are all these rifts and sects and splits and splinter religions is because there's actually nothing solid that it's based on.
Yeah.
You can't say
that's the simplest explanation.
God
for
is
all
actually,
of this.
just the Old Testament one, and the New Testament stuff didn't happen, because the Old Testament stuff didn't happen either.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I'm with you 100%. So that's a good point. So, maybe this Judeo-Christian term has something to do with, we like our stories a little better, or these stories sync up a little bit better than Islam's version. I think more honestly, though, I think that Americans are generally pretty ignorant of Islam. And
Sure.
so
Americans are generally pretty ignorant of
pretty ignorant
Christianity.
in general, right? Well, that too. But I think that it's hard to embrace another giant religion as part of this union if you don't know much about it, right? It's easy to be afraid of it and these sorts of things. So we have this history, a long history of persecution, which certainly is the first thing I think of when I hear Judeo-Christian. Does that mean that we're gonna persecute the first word in the hyphenated thing, and the second group wins out? Is that what that means? But there are also big theological differences between the two. For example, the nature of God is very different. Judaism doesn't believe that Jesus is anything special. The relationship between God and the individual, those things are very different between Christianity and Judaism. The origin and punishment of sin, the relative significance of piety versus deeds, the worthiness and redemption of non-believers, souls, heaven, hell, the purpose of prayer, the concern for physical versus moral well-being of others, and the concept of the Messiah. So all of these things are very different, and these are big differences between those two theologically. There are many political differences as well. Reform Judaism has come out in favor of the women's rights to choose an abortion, gay marriage, opposition against elevating property rights above civil rights, opposition to government censorship of the internet. A lot of these culture war things, Reform Judaism is on a very different side than conservative Christianity. And so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to lump them together. Much of the persecution and differences and so on between the two religions is based on some words in the New Testament, let the blood be on our hands, where supposedly the Jews in this New Testament story of Pontius Pilate and all that were supposedly blamed for all eternity for the killing of Jesus, but the killing of Jesus supposedly gives Christians, their trip to heaven. So maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of confused. Why kill Jews for giving you perpetual orgasm? I don't get it. Anyway,
the real reason is that.
Well, the real reason
it was a propaganda thing.
It's a propaganda thing, right? It's having an enemy, and having an enemy makes you more powerful. And then in this weird thing where we've spun Judeo-Christian to include Jews, now you have to find a new enemy, and the new enemy is gays, I believe. I think the gays are the new Jews in playing this role. And so the spin is really sort of playing up Christians who have helped Jews in the Holocaust. They're downplaying the Vatican's role in the Holocaust and in Christian persecution throughout history. They're downplaying Martin Luther's anti-Semitism and how that played into the Holocaust. They're playing up the U.S.'s role against Hitler in the war, claiming that somehow Hitler's side had nothing to do with religion when it was all about religion, and the U.S. was the savior, as was the Jesus character coming in to fix everything. So the spin result here is like you talked about earlier, is that we got a bigger tent, right? We can claim under this term Judeo-Christian that we're uniting Jews and Catholics and Protestants and all these other sects under a different thing, and we're hiding all the differences between these different groups. The next big event coming up was the founding of the U.S., and I want to spend a lot more time next time talking about this, but many people came to the United States, to the new America, fleeing religious persecution, which happened to be persecution by Christians of other Christians generally. The U.S. was founded on Enlightenment principles. Our Constitution has concepts like freedom, democracy, liberty, self-determination, equality, and capitalism. Those are the foundation, maybe not in all of those in our Constitution, but those are certainly the foundational concepts of the United States.
Capitalism, of course, being directly in violation of the amendment about coveting.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was one of my points, is it goes against coveting and against money changing, right? Which both are frowned upon in the Bible. There's no democracy mentioned in the Bible. In fact, the whole concept of the Bible is that God chooses the leaders, and you follow whoever those leaders happen to be, and you follow God. The U.S. was founded as a secular nation with religious freedom and government staying out of religion, and it was enshrined in our First Amendment. That's a very important concept. Freedom and liberty are foreign to the Bible. It's basically obey God or else. And you're not free, and you're going to get tortured for whatever happens to, if you're bad, and you're going to go to heaven if you're good. So, but self-determination and free thought are Enlightenment ideas that have been embraced by atheists. So it's odd to claim credit for liberty based on biblical principles. It makes no sense to me. And so what we see here is from the spin, we're seeing a stealing of credit for the U.S.'s successes for God. And in reality, what happened in World War II, for example, was we were not devastated by World War II. I mean, we fought abroad, and our country wasn't destroyed, whereas a lot of other countries like Japan and Germany and all of Europe were pretty much leveled during the war, and they had to rebuild. And in a sense, that gave us a big boost after World War II, and we sort of leapfrogged at that point. And that's the real reason why the U.S. is a superpower, not God. There's another part of the spin is they're using religious quotations to play up the America's founding and America and religion in America from those in power, and they're claiming that, oh, well, because this person issued this mentioned God here, there must have been, God must have made America great because God was mentioned here and there, and it's really kind of a lame argument, I think. Another thing you see with Judeo-Christian is they redefine liberty, and it's just amazing to me. And they don't mean liberty in the form of, you are autonomous and you take responsibility for yourself. What it means is it's you obey God. And it's this very weird, completely turning the meaning on its ear. And every time you see liberty mentioned in this Judeo-Christian propaganda, that's what they're doing.
Well, I've often gotten the sense that when religious conservatives talk about, well, why did we get attacked by Islamic terrorists? Well, it's because they hate our freedom.
Yeah.
When they say that, I don't feel like there's this deep comprehension of what they actually mean by freedom in that. It's more of like, they hate our good thing. Whatever
it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the concept of a MacGuffin, something that's important to the story, but only because it's important to the characters and not because of what it actually is.
You're just full of literary references.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go right over the heads of most people. I
have to admit, I've never heard that one.
So it was an Alfred Hitchcock term. Look it up on TV tropes.
Oh, okay. I only watched a couple of those movies. The Trouble with Harry's a hoot. That's a great movie.
Okay.
Anyway, so the result of all the spin as far as interpreting the U.S. as a Judeo-Christian nation is sort of hijacking of the U.S. for religious purposes. And I think that really what's going on is there's an attempt at creating kind of a soft theocracy. Mm-hmm. That the believers, the Christians, don't really want a theocracy because they realize there's too many different sects, and if any one of them gets in power, all the others are going to get beaten up, as has happened historically for hundreds and hundreds of years. So they don't really want a proper theocracy, but what they want to do is they want to say, oh, well, the successes of America, or America is really a Christian thing, and so we can sort of have a special place over and above the people who don't believe like us, like the atheists and like the Muslims and the all the other religions and things. So that's what's going on there. Two more. The next big event was the Cold War, and the Cold War. After World War II, relations with Russia soured, and there was this Red Scare that America was very, very afraid of these red communists, and religion was used, I think, very unfortunately, was used as a propaganda device to distance ourselves from Russia. We were very much like Russia in many ways. We're kind of a technology-driven country, very powerful, and we were kind of peers in many ways. And there had to be a propaganda device to make us look different, and that became what was used. So in the 50s, we had many church-state violations happen that were trying to promote this idea. We had the motto, "In God We Trust," was born then, putting the words "in God," under God in the pledge. Prayer in public schools was promoted. Ten Commandments monuments were put up around the U.S. There was religious references in government ceremonies, starting primarily with Eisenhower and going on until the Reagan years. During this time, atheists were vilified as being sort of in the same boat as communists. They were these godless communists were over there.
Not just then, we still get that.
We still get a lot of that, but it was especially bad in the 50s, and a lot of atheists, I think, abandoned the term atheist and became, many of them turned into humanists.
Yeah, I don't know, the communist epithet in general seems to have made a resurgence in the last few years.
Well, it seems to come and go, doesn't it? But atheism and communism have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Atheism
exactly.
is about a belief in God, and communism is sort of how you a certain way of running a society, and they don't have anything to do with each other. So all of this culminated in the breakup of the USSR during the Reagan years, and Reagan really pushed these sorts of ideas. So we're more like Russia than we care to admit. Playing up religion was a propaganda device, and it caused a lot of harm to the Constitution. It really sabotaged the church-state separation idea enshrined in the First Amendment of the Constitution. The vilification of atheists who had contributed a lot, such as Alan Turing and Einstein, had contributed a lot during the war. You know, the things that these people did were not even recognized properly, I don't think, as having come from atheists. So the spin, you know, we have a puffing up over the religious influence of the U.S. and claiming superiority of God belief, and those are some of the spin things. And what we see out of this is that we see the religions taking the opportunity to try to co-opt the government to promote Christian ideas and Christian values. I think that's what we see out of that. The last big event I wanted to mention, and then we'll take some callers soon. So guys, you got the number up already? That's good. The last big event is really kind of a series of things having to do with the Middle East. So I've labeled it Middle East tensions. So we have the founding of the State of Israel in the 60s. We have the notion of Zionism, of the Jewish nationalism, of Jews wanting to have their own nation, which is not a terrible thing. We have a rekindling of the Abrahamic covenant ideas that God supposedly gave the Jews this land, and it was sort of all theirs. But this land was taken from Palestinian natives, so that caused a lot of tension. We have a lot of Islamic frustration with the U.S. involvement in the Middle East for reasons of oil and because of our relationship with Israel. We're kind of Israel's big brother. And, you know, a lot of this has come to the head in the 9/11 attacks, right? Mm-hmm. So the point here is that Muslims worship the same God as the Christians and the Jews, and Islam and Judaism has traditionally had few disagreements until more recently, until the founding of the State of Israel. And so, for example, some of the food laws are very similar and a similar theology. And the differences are actually more stark between Christianity and Judaism and Islam and Christianity. So Christianity is kind of the outlier as far as a lot of these beliefs. The Abrahamic covenant is a joke. If you go back and try to look it up in the Bible, there's a claim from God that Israel shall rule this land forever, you know, and that just didn't happen, right? So the fact that you go back there is not a fulfillment in any way of the covenant.
Right, but I think an important point here is that a lot of fundamentalist Christians, especially the ones who are politically active, think there is. So,
oh yeah.
So I mean, they actually, I've heard a lot of discussion about how fundamentalist Christians think it's important to prop up the State of Israel because of the vital role that it plays in the, you know, in the apocalypse that they're all hoping will come and, rapture them up like in Left Behind.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's called Christian Zionism. It's rather twisted.
It's kind of creepy because I know fewer Jews who are gung-ho about Israel than I do Christians.
Yes, yes. And I see this as kind of the Christians, the Christian Zionists, which is kind of a subgroup, if you will, of Christians here in the U.S., and Israel kind of using each other, right? The Christian Zionists say they want to have their biblical prophecy crap, and they believe that certain things have to happen in the Middle East before they can go and be raptured up to heaven and the second coming and all that crap. And it's really kind of a very twisted, creepy, misanthropic sort of belief, I think, because during this rapturing, most of the Jews and most of the non-Christians are going to get killed as part of this, and
go to hell where they'll be tortured forever.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not saved.
Hooray for Jesus, right? But on so the Christians are sort of using the Jews in this respect, and that they want these events to try to play out in their fantasy world. But Israel is kind of using U.S. Christians, in order to further public aid or further foreign aid to Israel.
Right.
So this is a very sick sort of relationship, I think. And of course, the U.S. is in the Middle East because of oil, which is really not a religious thing. Right? It all has to do with about our love affair with cars and our hungry industry needing oil. And many complaints that that the Middle East, especially Islamic countries, have against the U.S. are valid. We have been very heavy-handed with our foreign policy, and a lot of things we've done over there are pretty reprehensible, at least to me. Not all of them, but I think that there's some validity to these complaints, and not that flying a plane into a building is the way to deal with those. But so there's a claim that Islam is somehow different, but that's not really true. So that's one of the spins that we see out of this. We see spin as treating the U.S. involvement in the Middle East as some sort of mandate from God, as ordained, and not really caring about people in the Middle East as people and as sovereign nations and these sorts of things. We see a lot of that. And this has led to a kind of a form of Christian imperialism, which has been kind of lumped under the phrase of U.S. exceptionalism, which is this idea that the U.S., because of its association with God or whatever, we can go do anything we want, and to hell with everybody else, and we're just going to go and steal oil or do whatever we need to do, and God's on our side. And it's very much like the Gott mit uns from the Hitler era of God's on our side, screw you, we're gonna trample on you. So the result of the spin is we've had the 9/11 attacks, we've had the war in the Middle East that's gone on and on, we've had a kind of a bankruptcy of the U.S. We're spending huge amounts of money, we have deaths of soldiers, and a non-sustainable economy as resulting of this. And I think that these sorts of things are very serious and are sort of tearing apart our nation. So in summary, this Judeo-Christian term is used as a propaganda device to advance Christianity, especially their political motivations. And I see this term as part of a big web of lies with bad consequences for our nation. And it seems that the lies are necessary for Christianity because they don't have the truth. They don't have the facts on their side. And most believers can't tell the difference between a lie and the truth. So I think care, right. And people who use this word should be forced to confront the real meaning of the term and its impact on the world. So that's my little presentation. We got lots of callers. Did you have anything you wanted to say to sum up?
Nope.
Okay.
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I guess I would be a little curious about where Mormons fit in, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't think we should necessarily go off on that tangent unless we run out of
good
callers.
questions, because Mormonism is kind of a bastard child off of Christianity.
Maybe next month.
Maybe next month. But
okay, so we have. Let's see. We're going to start with Krista in Austin. Hello, are you there? Hi.
Thanks for waiting. What do you got?
So I'm an atheist. My husband is agnostic, and we have been discussing children. We are not there yet. So if we went the old-fashioned way, it's a no-brainer. They would be raised without religion. But if we adopt a kid, they may come preloaded with a religion. What would you do?
Well, you can adopt a
Return
younger
it
kid.
because it's defective?
Preloaded, yeah. That's not a. There's this great quote by one of the, I forget which priest or pope. He sort of said, give me a child until they're 7 and they're mine forever, and it's just very creepy.
Yeah.
So there's some truth to what you say. Are you thinking of adopting an older kid? Is that what you're? Because I don't think this would be an issue with a younger kid.
Probably.
I mean, if it's a younger kid, how much are they going to remember, depending on how young they are anyway.
Right.
I mean, it would probably be, 6 or older, where, they're old enough to tell you that they believe in something, whether or not they know why, and that they would want to go to church on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're the parent. But go ahead, Russell.
As a parent,
yeah, shut up. I'm not a parent.
I've always felt like, I have a different parenting style than perhaps some Christians would recommend, but I've always felt like my role in the child's life is not to be the dictator, the arbiter of what they believe, but basically the most influential role model. And when it came to, whether or not you adopt a kid, your kid is going to be out there in the world where most of the people are Christian anyway. And they're going to hear stuff that doesn't agree with the things that you're telling them. And I feel like I'm sure we've all heard enough stories of atheist kids rebelling against their parents to realize that just saying this is the way it's going to be and you'll shut up and see things my way really doesn't work in either direction. So what I've always felt like with my own son is that it's my responsibility to completely explain to him what other people believe to the best of my abilities, point him in the direction, say that it's okay to talk to other people and get input from as many sources as possible. But at the end of the day, here's what I think. I'm going to answer all his questions about the counter-apologetics arguments that I deal with every couple of weeks on the show. And if he winds up wanting to go to church with some friends, I'm not going to lock him in a closet and say that he's not allowed to go. But it's always a good teaching and discussion opportunity. And I think what I've seen is that I don't know a lot of atheist parents, but generally I feel like this open style of parenting generally results in the kids feeling a lot more comfortable coming to the parent as a confidant and being more inclined to go that way than to just, decide to become a fundamentalist out of rebellion.
Yeah, if that's one of the outcomes, I think that's a good thing. I would think that a more challenging situation would be for the kid to not be taken in by the peer pressure from other kids. Because I understand that there are a lot of other kids that have kind of become miniature evangelicals, and they'll want to, pull the kid into whatever their parents' religion is. And I think this happens. This is an issue I think throughout. It's not really a religious issue. This is really more about, is your kid strong enough emotionally to make his own decisions and to go a way that may not be popular among his friends, if that's the right decision, right? Because this comes up with drugs, for example.
Right, but of course we're talking here about a kid who might, in principle, I mean, there's not a specific kid we're talking about yet, right? It's all hypothetical.
Yeah, it's hypothetical still.
Right.
Trying to prepare for the worst.
Right. So
I imagine
we're thinking about a kid who's already Christian, perhaps, and says, "Mom, will you take me to church? It's really important to me."
Yeah, well, that might happen for a while. To be honest, I think that this is a valid concern, but it's not a big concern. I think that this sort of thing will work itself out. I think you're going to have, other issues of, dealing with the temperament of the kid and getting used to having another person in your home and the different rhythm and all the responsibility. I think this will be a very small thing compared to all the other things that will be going on.
Yeah, I feel like if this does come up, I feel like it's important to take the kid seriously as a person and make sure they know that their thoughts and feelings are legitimate. But that doesn't mean you have to take the ideas seriously. And it doesn't mean you have to sort of walk on eggshells and pretend that
you're the parent. You can say
religion.
no, or you can, find some compromise that is sensible.
Right.
You're the guy person or woman in charge. You're the mom. But it sounds like these are concerns that are worth thinking about. And I'm glad to hear that you and your husband are kind of on the same page as far as your religious beliefs, because I think that's a challenge. If you have parents with different religious beliefs, there's always a lot of tension about how you're going to raise the kid, these sorts of things. And I think it's especially stark with one parent being a believer and another parent being a non-believer, because they're really very much at odds with each other. If you have two different versions of Christianity, you can find some sort of common ground and reconcile them. But atheism and theism are opposites, and that would be very hard to reconcile. I don't see how to do that personally.
Right. Well, thanks for calling, Krista, and lots of luck, regardless of how things turn out.
Good luck to you. Yeah.
And I hope you get your dream family.
We need more atheist parents. That's for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later. So we've also got, okay, that's line 2. That would be Mike in Little Rock, Arkansas. Are you there?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is about the lead up to, I guess, a potential Richard Dawkins-William Lane Craig debate, I don't know a whole lot about this. The only thing that I've seen was one time that Richard Dawkins was asked, why don't you debate William Lane Craig if he's known, as being the best, and you're kind of one of the most known for the other side? Shouldn't we have the best go up against the best and have a debate? Why won't you debate him? And on that video, he gave 4 reasons. The first one was that William Lane Craig was not a bishop, cardinal, pope, or archbishop, but he's debated other people who weren't also. He said that he was a creationist, but he's debated other creationists. And he said that his only claim to fame is that he's a professional debater, which is far from true. He's an excellent debater, but he's a double PhD. He's been a professor for over 30 years, written over 30 books. He gets published in secular journals. And then the other one, the last one, was, excuse me, he said, well, I'm too busy, which, of course, if you're debating other people, it's hard to make that argument. But I was wondering if you knew.
Well, Richard Dawkins has been burned a number of times. Do you want to?
Well, I don't really necessarily. I think that Richard Dawkins is an excellent writer, and I think he's good in solo presentations. I've heard a number of discussions with him where he sort of frustrated me by not going where I would go. I wouldn't want to over-elevate Richard Dawkins as like the best possible person to be out there. And I've heard William Lane Craig go on debates, and he's extremely full of shit and really good at it.
By the way, there are folks in the Atheist Community of Austin, I think Russell would be one of them, who would be willing to debate William Lane Craig. And so, we're not shy. We'll do it.
But yeah, I'm
what are
interested in
Russell's
that sort of
credentials?
What?
Well, what are Russell's credentials?
I'm about as qualified in science as William Lane Craig is.
You got 2
Those
PhDs?
are my. What are his PhDs in?
Math and philosophy. It's about religion. It's a debate about
Right.
God.
So as I said, I'm about as qualified to talk about science as William Lane Craig is.
And so.
But we know as much about theology as he does. So.
Right. So I'm not particularly interested in the point about what 2 champions would best represent us. Do you have a particular thing that William Lane Craig says that you think is a particularly strong demonstration of the existence of God?
Assuming that's the topic, right?
Yeah, no, that's not real. I just called to see why. I guess my question was why would not if Richard Dawkins, do you personally believe that he is the best person to represent the atheist community? I'd probably acknowledge that too, but the question is why is he avoiding him and then giving false reasons why?
Well, I don't know or care much. You'd have to talk to Richard Dawkins' PR guy. Or Richard Dawkins.
I think that a lot of these debates that I've seen have been very, very frustrating because they seem to be won or lost or played based on rhetorical games rather than facts and proper debate techniques.
Right.
And that's just super frustrating to me.
I've actually written extensively about creationism debates on the Atheist Experience blog, and I think a lot of things happen frequently that more experienced debaters ought not to fall for. For instance, the topic is frequently very loaded in one direction.
Or changed at the last minute. They play games like that.
Changed at the last minute. There was a debate we saw between Michael Shermer and a couple of other guys where Michael Shermer got about 20 minutes to speak and the 2 other guys collectively got like an hour-long PowerPoint presentation between them. And I think that a lot of times these debates do wind up being sucker games. And need to be set up very, very carefully in advance because it always seems to be the religious people who are setting the venue and deciding on the topic. So I would be interested in a Dawkins-Craig debate, but I think that it would be a good idea for the terms of the debate to be really carefully defined ahead of time.
Yeah, no, and I definitely, what you say could definitely be true as far as, setting up a, like a dishonest debate, and of course I'd be against that. Now, you know,
Good.
my call was about William Lane Craig. Do you have any reason to believe that he has done this in the past?
That who? William Lane Craig?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about. I mean, I've listened to a bunch of these debates, and they all kind of blur together. But I do specifically remember listening to a William Lane Craig debate and writing about it on the blog. So,
give that.
you'd have to track that down. And
Atheist Experience .blogspot.com.
Right, and search for William Lane Craig, and email us at tv@atheist-community.org if you know, if you have more comments about that afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for calling.
Who else we got?
We have Malcolm in Austin. We're getting a good number of local callers today.
Cool.
Malcolm?
Yeah.
Hi, you're on.
What's up?
Yeah, I was wondering, why is it so hard for y'all to believe there's no God?
Well, some evidence would be useful.
To believe there is a God, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, okay, we're on this earth, right?
As far as I can tell, yes.
And
Yeah, our position is very simple. Until there is sufficient evidence to believe something, you should not believe.
well, I mean, look at this. I mean, you look at the earth from outer space.
How about the trees?
There's nothing that's really holding it up. So, I mean, you know, and we're the only...
It's a gravitational balance
we're the only planet in the universe that has life.
that we know of. Yes.
Okay.
On it, you know.
Do you? Okay,
And
wait
another
a
thing,
minute.
Check this out.
Back
you got
up.
different races. You got blacks, whites, Japanese, Mexicans. I mean, you ought to
And different
understand,
species,
I mean,
too.
Somebody was in charge of this. I mean, we're like ants, and God is looking down on us, right?
Hey,
And
you've seen God?
You say
Russell, stop
there's
him.
no God, but there is a God. And my prayer for
Can
you
you
is,
can you back up
one
for a
day
second?
you
Can we
will
go
be
back to the
saved,
first thing you said?
and you-
You're on hold. I will give you a minute to realize that. Hello. The first thing you said was that there's nothing holding the Earth up. You realize how gravity works, right? Wait, what line were we on? 2? Hello? Are you still there? Hello?
The show?
Hello?
I think it was 3.
Oh,
Pause
sorry.
it. Pause it. Yeah.
Are you there?
yeah, I'm here. My phone is breaking up.
Okay. Sorry, I had to put you on hold for a second so we could go back to the first thing you were talking about.
Yeah, you don't get to make 500 points before we respond.
Right. First of all, you said there's nothing holding the Earth up. Do you get how gravity works?
Yes, I understand that.
Okay, you understand things don't get held up in space. The only thing that defines whether something is up is if it's being pulled towards a very massive object. So there's nothing to hold it up from, okay?
There is no up in space.
Have I lost you?
No. keep going.
So the Earth is orbiting around the sun, and there's an exact equal pull between the sun's gravity pulling it in and the Earth in its centrifugal force pulling it out, and so that's what's holding up the Earth. So it's very easily explained by
See,
Newtonian gravity.
If I could make this a broader point here.
About knowing this, why can't we create one ourselves, the universe? You
Because sentient beings do not create stuff like that.
understand? Who don't create things like that?
Sentient beings. There isn't any indication that those kinds of things get created by intelligence. In order to establish that that sort of thing could happen, you would have to first demonstrate, I mean, you're going about this backwards, you would have to first demonstrate that there is this gigantic, all-encompassing mind that can do something like create universes,
Well,
and
I
then
believe
you could
did
give
that
it
before
credit.
with your science project, didn't you? But God did the real thing, huh?
But
That's
you
your
haven't-
claim.
Yeah, that's what you're saying, but you have no reason
There's
to
no
back that
evidence
up.
for that.
Man, look, but anyway,
You know,
like
it
I said, I'm
sounds
gonna pray for you
sounds like a
guys,
good story,
and,
but that's all it is.
well, hey, that's what you believe. But I mean, you know, I'm not mad at you guys, but I'm gonna pray for you because one day you will get to see God. We all will get to see Him.
Okay,
And,
well, I will sacrifice a goat for you. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, there's lots of things we could have said
I
there.
lost the caller page. Let's see. Line 1 would be Jeremiah in San Antonio.
Yeah,
Hello?
that's me. Hi. Yeah, the lady who called in saying, what if she adopted a kid who was Christian?
Uh-huh.
My cousin she's in that same situation. She married a guy who...
Oh, good. Enlighten
He's an atheist, but he was in the military, and his wife is very much not an atheist, and she was like, really, really religiously raising her.
Okay, so you had, it was a situation where the parents had different religions, right? So it's a bit different than the caller.
My cousin's husband, he's also, he calls himself agnostic, but same thing. But the daughter, she kept like, no, I'm a Christian, because they didn't go to church, and her mother did, but, my cousin, her stepmother, and her father don't. Mm-hmm. So what my cousin did was she said, all right, well, if you want to be a Christian, you need to know what that actually means. So she started this bi-weekly Bible study with her, and she started at Genesis 1, and she only made it halfway through Genesis, and she's kind of stopped calling herself a Christian.
Well, you know what they always
that's
say,
delicious. I love
reading the Bible is the best cure for Christianity.
Yes, there's Isaac Asimov.
She was reading the stuff, and she was like, well, why does this say women are less than men here? And why is... She kept pointing out how unfair it was to women.
How awesome.
It's her daughter, and she was like, I'm not less than a man, and my cousin was like, yeah, that's what we've been saying.
Right. That's why my
That
advice
is so awesome. I love
don't
it.
fear to let your kid be exposed to church environments and especially don't fear to let them read the Bible. I mean, bear in mind that until Protestantism came along, a big thing in the Catholic Church was preventing people from reading the Bible themselves.
Right.
Part of the big deal about the Reformation was that Martin Luther did a lot toward making the Bible accessible to everybody, and what do you know? Right after that came the came the Enlightenment,
right?
Where you had a bunch of people like Thomas Jefferson
actually read the thing
and call it out for all the nonsense in it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we like this little
Read
kid.
them the Bible
like
is a bedtime story. That's what I say.
Okay, that's a great story. Anything else, Jeremiah?
No, that's actually the reason I was an atheist, because, when I was 14, I called myself a Christian, and, my dad kept calling me to read the Bible. I didn't want to because I thought it was boring, and so to appease him, I did, and, it started me to be an atheist, so.
Okay. We hear that a lot, actually. Not every atheist goes through that path, but that's a pretty common path, I would say, is that people who are believers go deeper into it, and then they realize that, hey, the deeper I go, the less sense this makes. And I guess I've often said, the more you learn about Christianity, the less sense it makes. And so, yeah, education's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, I agree. All right. Well, y'all have a good show. Thank you.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling, Jeremiah. Bye. We have Ben in Austin. Hello?
Hey guys, how are y'all doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. Hey, I was just wondering, did y'all hear about Christopher Hitchens being diagnosed with throat cancer?
Yes, I have. I hope he gets better.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, I kind of saw some hypocrisy there when, like, Billy Graham died. You guys, especially Matt, had said some pretty scandalous things about him. And now that
the question is, were they true?
With Richard, it was Christopher. I hear some of the theists saying some scandalous things about that. And
there are scandalous things to be said about him. That's for sure.
Can you give an example? I mean, I wasn't on the show where Matt talked about Billy Graham. I'm sure I listened to it, but can you remind me what specifically he said?
Like good riddance. I can't take out word for word exactly what he said, but pretty much that was kind of the feel.
Okay, I would not be surprised if people said the same thing about Christopher Hitchens. I know that they feel that way about him.
Well, honestly, myself, when that was said about Billy Graham, I didn't care. I thought that was kind of funny, but people are saying that about Christopher Hitchens, and I'm offended. And, it's kind of a little bit of hypocrisy. Is that okay to be hypocritical? Should there be a double standard when it's my guys versus their guys?
Well, I mean,
it might be human nature.
It's not, it's not so much whether it's okay. I mean, it's going to happen no matter what. People have their preferences, and, it might piss me off if people talk badly about Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens, although, you know,
Well,
I talk bad about them sometimes too if they say something I don't like.
No,
I wouldn't say good riddance if he died, because I like the guy mostly.
I think the most important thing is what's being said true, and if something is being said or made up or whatever. Like very often when someone dies who was you know, questionable believer or non-believer, there's these myths that get circulated that, oh, there was a deathbed confession and they gave their life to Jesus at the last moment and all that, and that's just really annoying to me to have. It's a way of stealing credit through lies of this person's work or whatever, their beliefs or their stance or whatever they stood for. And I just really hate that sort of thing. So if what is being said is the truth, I don't think there can be any complaint, right?
You know, I remember an editorial being written, and I can't remember the details right now, but it was something like, you know, God is doing a great thing by giving Christopher Hitchens cancer because it's going to bring him
to Jesus.
It's going to make him realize the error of his ways.
Yeah.
And I think P.Z. Myers has a term for people who write like that. He calls them contemptible ghouls because they are sort of using the opportunity to
capitalize on somebody else's pain.
Capitalize on somebody else's pain, whereas I think saying good riddance about Billy Graham, it's kind of a jerky thing to say, but but that doesn't mean that Matt can't say it, and he may even be justified in saying that. But it's a whole nother category to sort of to sort of lie about the outcome of this sort of thing, to come up with something similar to the Darwin Lady Hope story, where you say, oh, he actually converted on his deathbed, when he didn't. Mm-hmm. They said the same thing about Gould, didn't they?
Oh, it's a popular thing. It's been used a lot.
Yeah, the idea of an atheist vindicating your beliefs by converting them to at the last minute in secret to one eyewitness is a very popular theme in Christian fiction.
Right.
And
just to say Christianity.
I'm not saying it can't happen, and I would say, in fact, that even if Christopher Hitchens, you know, at the last moment of his life said, "Oh my God, how could I have been so blind all along? Jesus is the one true God." That doesn't mean that atheists would take him seriously, because I don't think that atheists do or should bring one guy, you know, elevate one guy as the spokesperson, as the one arbiter of truth.
We're not followers. We come to our own conclusions.
Right. There isn't an atheist pope.
And if somebody changes their mind, well, maybe they know some facts, or maybe they're made a mistake or whatever. That's sort of that's a separate issue to how we're going to make decisions, right?
Yeah. Look at the reaction to Antony Flew.
Right.
I mean, Antony Flew is seemingly a genuine
atheist.
case, where he actually changed his mind when he got old. And who jumped all over this story? It wasn't a bunch of atheists converting en masse because they worshipped Antony Flew. It was a bunch of Christians saying, "See, this just proves that we're right." In the atheist community, it was like, "Wow, what made him think that?" And in my case, Antony who?
Yeah, I didn't know him. But the big irony there is that Antony Flew converted to deism and denied Christianity, but the Christians are promoting it. Oh, we're right, you know. It's like, no, you need to understand what he's talking about.
Well,
right.
So
it's pure propaganda.
If you're going to buy into Pascal's wager, wouldn't that be the best time to, you know, right at the very end, last second?
Oh yeah, hedging your bets.
Well, that's supposedly what Constantine did, is that he decided that it was too risky to convert to Christianity before he was on his deathbed because he might sin. And if you converted at the very end, you get all the goodies, supposedly, right? So
right.
So it was very calculated.
Back in the day to get baptized right before you die.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing, I guess.
Right. Jack Chick, one of my favorite Chick tracts, was about the gunslinger who's, you know, this evil mustachioed guy, and he, you know, murders a bunch of people, and then at the end he winds up having a last-minute conversion just like that. And the sheriff, who is presented as a good law-abiding citizen goes to hell after a snake scares his horse or something. And this is the way things work in the fictional Jack Chick universe. And then at the end of the tract, it says, now get down on your knees and say, Jesus, come into my heart. So, I read a Jack Chick tract once, and I said, okay, got down on my knees, said, Jesus, come into my heart. Got back up, continued doing an atheist show. So I'm covered. As far as Pascal's wager goes, I can be an atheist all I want.
Right then, or did he want you to kill a bunch of people and then go down on your knees?
Well, that wasn't the advice in the tract.
Oh. Well, then it's unclear. I think he should, be a little clearer in his message.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's all pretty silly, so I wouldn't have even done that, Russell. But
well, I mean, I figure as far as Pascal's
just
wager
make the
goes,
audience aware that this was a tongue-in-cheek thing, right?
Yeah, it was tongue-in-cheek.
Okay.
At no point in this...
We don't take it that seriously.
Yeah, at no point in this did I actually, think that this was doing anything except for a laugh.
Right. Anyway. Okay, Ben,
All
anything
right.
else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, so we have somebody on topic. How about that?
Okay.
Peter in Poland wants to talk about Christian buzzwords.
Okay, hey.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi,
Poznan,
how are
huh?
you?
How are you all doing?
Good.
Fine.
I know some folks there in Poznan.
Yeah, you're our longest
Actually,
distance
I'm
caller
not from
today.
Poznan, but the guy who puts the location of the callers over there wanted me to give a name of a city that's relatively close to mine, and a city that would be big enough to be identifiable and the
I
name
see.
to be pronounceable.
So
I
it's
just gave that
close
name.
enough.
So
Close
you're
enough for TV.
approximately in
Anyway,
Poznan.
the topic that I wanted to address, since, as you most probably know, according to the statistics, most people in Poland are Catholics, but the statistics really only mention the fact that they are Christed, so I doubt if they count the fact that someone might not attend church after the communion, or like me, for example, that I never really bothered to fill out the apostasy papers. Anyway, the topic.
That's a common thing here.
One of their most favorite the most favorite words they have, they use to say that abortion is murder. They usually equate it to like you would murder a person, and they actually have a special exposition where they ride around Poland, and they have pictures of Hitler, so there goes Godwin's law, and pictures of aborted fetuses, of late-term abortions, very bloody pictures, and they place them usually in city centers. So, for example, there's a city called Lublin, and they placed it in the center, and young children could see this, and the point of this was obviously to shock people into thinking that every abortion looks like this. So when you take, for example, the next day pill, then this is what comes out of you.
Yeah,
And,
it's kind of very manipulative,
Happens
isn't it?
here too.
It's very manipulative.
Abortion is a medical procedure, and a lot of medical procedures are pretty gross. I mean, I bet if you would put up a picture of open heart surgery in a town
Or
square
cancer
also,
extraction or anything like that.
it would be pretty disgusting and horrific also. But going for that emotional punch does not in any way validate their argument about whether whether the fetus is actually a thinking individual. And of course, they have an argument about it having a soul. But I mean, I don't believe in a soul, so whatever.
So either way, the guy who's behind this exhibition has been put in front of has been actually sued by people who were offended by this.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
He was let go.
Okay.
So what organization was he working for? Was he with the Catholic Church?
Let me just Google that. That was.
Yeah. What would we do without Google, huh?
Yeah, I know. Like 20 years ago, we had to
we had
rely on
our memories.
libraries and stuff.
Yeah. What's anyway?
Okay.
The exhibition is called "Choose Life: Stop Abortion."
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, that sounds very much like the sort of things that go on here. There's at family planning clinics where abortions are sometimes performed, you see this sort of spectacle here in the United States quite a bit, and it's really a very traumatic experience, I think, for the women that are going in there, either just to get birth control or you know, plan their families. They have to see all this, and you know, if people are actually seeking abortions, which are legal here in the U.S., it's a real gauntlet that they have to run, and it's really kind of sad what they get put through.
Right.
It is sad, and I'm sure it is traumatizing. I mean, I obviously can tell because I can't get pregnant. I'm not a woman, but I guess it would be very traumatizing. But there is no need really to shock little children with such images.
I agree.
That's what I think.
Right.
And
well, I mean,
the other thing that they like to mention is. Sorry about the phone lag.
No problem.
And
it's okay.
They just like to say that they're happy with the exhibition because it gets them what they want. They want attention, and that's generally what they get. And well, I say that if you want attention, you could just blow yourself up in the middle of the city. That would garner attention too. But if your main motive is gaining attention, then you're just going to do things that are obviously bordering on being evil. And I'm not sure how much of a Christian way that is, but I do know that Christianity used to be pretty bloody in the past, so maybe that's actually what's going on. They're returning to their roots.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a typical tactic in general that if you don't really have factual information on your side, then going for a cheap emotional appeal is an easy way to accomplish things. I mean, there's a lot of discussion to be had. I mean, when they say it's murder, you know, the question really is, why do you draw a sharp dividing line at that point? I mean, like, why not? Why isn't it that, you know, as a sperm approaches an egg, you know, there are actually millions of other sperms also approaching the egg, and the vast majority of them will die. Yeah. None of them, you know, nobody anywhere argues that that is some kind of mass murder event every single time a child is conceived. Nobody is saddened or depressed by that. And, you know, I don't want to make light of actual infanticide, which abortion is not, basically. Yeah. I heard an interesting question that was posed by somebody, which is that you know, if you had a burning building with a freezer full of you know, potentially several million human lives in a petri dish somewhere,
embryos, right?
Yeah, embryos.
Frozen embryos. And
you had in another corner a single 5-year-old child, would you save the child or the freezer? Nobody, I think, is crazy enough to save the freezer.
Right.
I mean, you know, there is a distinction that ought to be drawn here, and I think that the fact that so many people view it as murders now, when it wasn't even viewed as murder in biblical times, has to do with you know, sort of social consensus that was arrived at, that this is just the way stuff is.
Oh, well, I have a more cynical view.
Okay.
I
love cynicism.
You hear this phrase here in the United States, the sanctity of human life, and it's been. I think that if you look at every time that phrase is used, the value of a human life is proportional to how much potential tithing that person can do from then on, right? So the sanctity of a human life of a 90-year-old is pretty much no one cares, right? It's not a there's no Christian initiative to try to make those people live to 150 or whatever, because they don't feel that they're going to get any tithe out of them. But boy, a fertilized embryo, you want to bring that to fruition, and you want to claim credit for that embryo coming, because that individual is going to be a child of God and a believer and a tither, give their life to God, and so they're a pretty valuable commodity. So I view this as kind of a very calculated way of extracting value out of other human beings for the benefit of Christianity and the church.
Yeah. Overall, the Catholic Church in Poland seems not to care at all what happens to children, to actual infants or newborns. Once they are actually born, they only care as long as they are in the womb. And what happens to the woman also doesn't matter, because there's actually a case of a woman called Alicja Tysiąc. Alice Tysiąc. Maybe you have heard that name. I don't know if that's how you would pronounce it. Probably something like that. And she has actually sued the state of Poland because she couldn't get an abortion, and the doctor that was managing her pregnancy has told her that she would probably go blind as a result of complications of her immunological system. And she had the baby, but she did go blind, and she did sue the state of Poland at the European Tribunal, and of course the church went, pardon my French, batshit crazy about that.
Sure, and,
sure.
You know, I view a lot of this as meddling in decisions that are between the doctor and the patient. You know, the Catholic Church doesn't know a damn thing about those things, and they shouldn't be involved. And if they are involved, they should take responsibility for the thing there. I mean, childbirth is a very risky thing. You know, we've gotten used to modern medicine, you know, pulling people through, but it's a very dangerous thing, and there can be complications, and there can be a lot of difficulties. And this simplistic view of, you know, the child matters more than anything else is very kind of harmful. And people need to make their own decisions on these things, or, you know.
Yes, and the view that there's some sanctity of life over everything else, including over, for example, human suffering, is also just unbelievably evil. Like, for example, you could cause any suffering to a human being by prolonging, for example, death, just because life is so sacred that you cannot perform euthanasia. But that's kind of off the topic, and I'll try to wrap this up.
Okay.
By also mentioning from the medical viewpoint that also it happens from time to time. Actually, a lot of times it happens that the woman's body aborts the pregnancy before the egg even.
It's more common than people realize,
right?
Right? Sometimes the embryo doesn't implant, and sometimes there's very early miscarriages. Yes, it's a very common thing. Go ahead.
I just like to wrap this call up, because I'm sure the phone bill is already going to be insane.
Okay.
So anyway, congratulations on the show. I hope that no more crazy fundamentalists will try to blow up your abortion clinics.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks,
and,
Peter.
Keep it rational.
Okay.
Dark
Thank you.
humor. I love it.
Take
Thank
care.
you for calling, Peter.
That's a good closing. Keep it rational. I like it.
All right. So we have next Tim in Kansas City. Hello, Tim.
Oh, hey guys. Thanks for taking my call. I just had 2 questions, if that would be all right. They're pretty short.
Sure.
The first one is, you always hear people saying that evolution is just a theory. It's only a theory, not knowing what the actual theory means in a scientific sense.
Yeah, it's an equivocation over that word.
Yeah,
right?
your creationists say it with the word just. It's
always
sort of like saying Earth is just a planet.
Gravity is just a theory.
Along with the theory of relativity. But
right.
But my question is, I'm not all the way up to date on my scientific terms, so my question is, if evolution is a fact, which I believe it is, why isn't it called a law?
There are actually, I always hesitate to try to delve into scientific terminology, because I usually seem to get it wrong. But my understanding is that a law, first of all, it's not any more definite than a theory. I mean, as you know, a theory is a framework of explanation for describing why it is that certain facts hold together. and it has to take all observations into account. A law is actually a very specific term that requires a precise description of behavior. For instance,
it's descriptive, though.
Right,
That's the important thing. Is you may not have an explanation for it, but you're describing something you see, like the the speed of light being a universal thing. That's kind of a law, or gravity being a law in the sense of
right.
Everywhere we've seen this, it's behaved this way. And I think what Russell's getting to is generally with laws there's a quantification. It's like a mathematical function that usually
like
comes
for
with
instance, the law of gravity isn't just a general description of gravity, because there is something called the theory of gravity also, and that's distinct from the law. So the law of gravity, specifically says, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry, I haven't had a physics class in years, but it's like force equals the product of the two masses divided by the square of the distance.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, basically.
And that isn't, and just because they call that a law doesn't mean that that's definite and can never be changed. It just means these are the observations that things that we can observe and experiment on conform to this equation, and we can use this equation to predict the way that they'll work within a reasonable measure of accuracy.
So to answer your question with regard to evolution, it's not really easily put into an equation, and that's the only reason.
Right, because there's a lot that goes into the theory of evolution. There are a number of different parts. I mean, there are genetic laws about the way that you can predict how two different genotypes will come together and probabilistically produce an offspring.
Right. There is quantification. When you open the box and look inside, there are areas where there are laws and there are quantifications going on.
Right. But what I'm saying
they're not that popular in culture.
Evolution isn't just one giant scientific concept that, like, you say it in a sentence and everything is gone. Evolution is a framework or a theory which encompasses a whole lot of different disciplines, from genetic study to archaeology and the fossil record. A whole lot of different disciplines come together under the umbrella of evolution, and evolution won't ever graduate from a theory to a law, because when it meets some standards, because a law is just a different kind of thing than a theory.
It's more like a framework, scientific framework for thinking about all these different disciplines and how the observations they see there.
Right. I want to recommend...
It's kind of a bit of a different beast in that it's not so easily quantified.
Yeah. I want to recommend a website, but I don't have it right on me. So why don't you keep watching for a few minutes?
Are there some keywords that you can Google about?
I hope so, but I don't want to waste too much time.
Okay, maybe we should switch to another caller. Unless you had something else.
That's fine.
Did you have anything else?
Oh, no, that pretty much is it. Thank you guys for summing all that up.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, but actually, if I were you, this is the best page to look at talkorigins.org. In the facts section, it is an article titled "Evolution is a Fact and a Theory." I think you should go over that page, because it's kind of long and very detailed, and I think addresses the question better than either of us are qualified to do.
Yeah, and that's a very good website, talkorigins.org. It's a gathering of a lot of information having to do with origins questions, which are very important questions. But one of the things I really like on that website is there's a sort of a taxonomy of apologetics or of intelligent design claims and answers to those. And so pretty much anything you ever hear about intelligent design or creationism is answered there, and it's exhaustively listed out, and it's just really wonderful resource. So.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Tim.
All right, thanks for calling. Next we have Jonathan in Columbia, South Carolina. Is that right?
Hi, how are you guys doing this evening?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
I'm fine, thank you. Actually, I want to comment on the previous two callers, if I can.
Okay.
First guy was talking about abortions, and I think the exact numbers are that half of all pregnancies actually abort spontaneously.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I don't think it's that high, but it is pretty high. Yeah, it's a pretty high number.
A fifth of the ones that make it end in miscarriage without the woman even knowing she was pregnant, and that doesn't include the ones that she might know she miscarried, and the ones that died shortly after birth.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guy who just calls fact and theory. The way I always explain it is a fact is something that you can merely observe. So you observe a pencil falling.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact of gravity.
Right.
But the theory is the model that explains why that happened.
Right. The actual question had to do with the difference between a law and a theory.
Oh, law. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little different question, but that's okay. I mean, what you said is true. Yeah. The theories are models. They're frameworks for thinking about things, and over time they become more solid because they have more evidence that confirms them, and they run more. There's a potential to falsify them, and they end up not falsified because people have gone out and tried to falsify them. So this is the sort of way that these theories become more solid.
Another good example being the germ theory of disease. That's how and why diseases happen. The fact that diseases happen is an observed fact, but the fact that they are caused specifically by these microorganisms is the theory.
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to have to speed to your point on this because we've only got a couple minutes left, and I want to remind everybody that in 30 minutes, if you're in Austin, feel free to come on down to Threadgill's on Riverside.
And have dinner with us.
And have, yes,
we have quite a number of folks here in the audience, and we get a pretty big crowd, and a lot of folks like to chat about atheism.
So come on down, and we've got a little over a minute left, so is there anything else?
I'll just call next week. How about that?
That sounds great.
All right. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you for calling.
Dare I take Chuck in Austin and give him about 30 seconds? I'm sorry, Chuck, for rushing you. If you stay on the line, we'll talk to you after the show.
You're talking about Christian buzzwords. One of the ones I always hear is God works in mysterious ways.
Oh, that's a good one.
And my answer to that is, well, that explains why he would allow a little child to be kidnapped, raped, and murdered, but he would save some drug addict who's getting ready to jump off a bridge.
Right. That's pretty mysterious.
Yeah.
In fact, if I'm ever convicted for a major crime, I'm thinking about just telling the jury that I'm mysterious. And that's my excuse. I don't know if they would buy that
and you're godlike as a result, yes.
Right.
Okay.
But
yeah, I'll just say God made me do it.
Right.
That's another good one. The devil made me do it.
Yeah, that usually works. Yeah. So thanks for calling. Do you want to stay on the line for after the show? Well, I'll put you on hold and we'll see. But anyway, that's our show. There was our crew, and thanks everybody. Thanks Don. It's been
a pleasure
as usual.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun today.
Bye. See you at the Red Gills.
Hey guys, you need to put our website on that slide.
Yeah.